Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Well Aware Podcast. My name is Conrad Ruiz. With me today is Brian Livingston of Zelkam. Brian, pleasure to have you here.
Yeah, pleasure to be here. Appreciate
Yeah.
it, Conrad. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Likewise, Brian, if I may, I want to take a stab at introducing you and what Zelkam has essentially built. And forgive me if, I'm not doing the perfect justice. I'm excited for you to, provide your own introduction in kind. But the reason I'd like to attempt to introduce you is I'd like to see how far I've come with trying to understand the nature of your business and what it is that
Okay.
you've accomplished. You are a decades experienced chemical engineer who has a heart for environmental sustainability, and you got into a very particular product. You've built a very particular solution to creating fuel efficiency within the heavy machinery, trucking, and logistics kind of industries. You've essentially created a catalyst, a device that's designed to be attached to the fuel systems of these heavy machinery equipments, again, trucks, you name it. And essentially, the catalyst's job in a very chemical function is to increase the overall fuel efficiency of these devices, which is meant to be, a money saver. But at the same time, part of this efficiency also produces less pollution, which is a huge environmental sustainability pledge,
Correct.
component in and of itself.
Yep.
And so combined, you have this offering that you want to bring to the marketplace in which, hey, I've got fuel efficiency, I've got environmental sustainability, whether your goal is to save money or meet a certain sustainability metric that's been asked of you as an individual, that's the pitch that you're making to the industry, to the specific audience that you're trying to ultimately sell to.
That's right. And it's really not either an either or, it's a both. That's the beauty of it.
Okay, how did I do?
Yeah, no, well done.
Okay, grateful.
Yeah.
Brian, for today's episode, I want to invite we go into the nature of your business. I want to invite we go into, how it all got started, where you want to highlight the zone of genius around the catalyst that you've built and how it works. And then I want to invite the audience to better understand how business is going.
Mhm.
What are your triumphs and temptations, your joys and sorrows, and where ultimately do you feel like you need help right now?
Yeah. A lot of times in these situations, some entrepreneur has this wonderful idea and everything has just gone wonderful since the beginning. And, I had this great vision and I brought it to market and it's been super successful. And most of the time, that's not the way it works. We like to put our best foot forward and pretend that we're the genius and whatever. But I'll go back a little bit and start my story from just a little bit ago. And I'd like to do this to encourage other people. I've always been kind of an encourager, and I want to do that. If you're stuck in a situation and it's not going real well, don't think you're the only person there. Okay, there's lots of others. So reach out and talk to people, ask for help, and people will help. But anyway, about 40 years or more of being a chemical engineer. About the last 20 years was spent at Caterpillar and diesel engine division. So I understand the chemistry. I understand, the diesel engine and the practical aspects of that. Dealt with a lot of customers and dealers in Caterpillar. But then at the beginning of COVID, Caterpillar fires about 4,000 of us to make the quarter end numbers. And I was one of those. Been a corporate guy all my life. Just worked for big companies, enjoyed it. I had a good career, but then started looking for another job at the depth of COVID. And you kind of know that where I went. And that didn't go well. But a friend of mine introduced me to an interesting technology that helps diesel anything burn cleaner and more efficient. And so I thought, well, this does kind of fit my background. I better look into this. And so I started doing a little bit of study on it. And first I was kind of skeptical because I had worked for Caterpillar, the largest heavy-duty engine maker in the world.
Why hadn't they figured this out already?
Well,
started
that was kind of my thought. I came into it extremely skeptical. So anyway, I got on a plane and I flew to Florida and I visited the factory, talked to the president of the company that has this thing. I talked to the inventor who I still talk to regularly. In fact, just yesterday I was on the phone with him for a while. And I talked to the chairman of the board. I talked to customers. I talked to ex-employees even to kind of get the skinny on the thing. And then I read reams and reams of reports of tests that had been done in test cells, many, many customer tests and stuff. So anyway, after all that data, and then to me, the big thing was I figured out the chemistry of what's going on with this thing. And bear with me for a moment. Let me grab a prop here.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is essentially the device. And if it looks just like a copper tube filled with stuff, well, that's exactly what
It's a
it
copper
is.
tube filled with stuff.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what it is. Expensive stuff. But you can kind of see some threads on the end there. And, so this thing, you put the diesel fuel through one end, and it's filled with all these rare earth metals and that act as catalysts. And so you put long chains into one end, right? That's what your normal diesel molecule looks like. Well, you break up some of them through here. And then out this end comes diesel fuel, but some of the molecules have been shortened. They've been cut in two because of the catalysts and the catalyst action in here. And if anybody wants to get a little deeper into the chemistry, you get a hold of me, and I'll talk through that. I've made up some cartoons on a presentation stuff that helps to kind of clear the cobwebs from your high school chemistry and bring this down to reality. Because
Right.
it's not a black
We're getting
box.
back into the fundamentals of combustion, right?
Exactly. You have to break apart all those little small molecules into tiny ones, right? That's what combustion is, and it releases energy during that process.
And you ideally want the most bang for your buck, quite literally.
Well, exactly. Yes. You want, when you get into the cylinder, if you think about it, you want as much energy pushing down on the cylinder as possible. And there's two things going on in that cylinder. One, you're pushing down, but you're also spending energy to break up all those molecules. And if you've broke up a few of those in this device beforehand, then you don't have to waste that energy doing that. And so bottom line with all that, I know I'm getting off on a little off track here, but bottom line on that is about 5 to 7% fuel savings, which means 5 to 7% less CO2. And because you're more efficient, you get less things like NOx, carbon monoxide, soot, all those things are reduced as well. And so you get kind of this win-win-win. And, as I was reading all the reports, my eyes were kind of getting a little bigger, thinking, the world really needs this. And I'm looking for something to do. And I know diesel engines, and I know some chemistry. So why don't I really try to grab this invention and push it out to the diesel drinking world? I mean, those are my people, right?
Yeah.
I've hung around mining trucks, locomotives, port equipment, diesel electric generators, all my whole career. And so these are my people. I know what they need, and they should really go for this. I know they're going to need this. So anyway, that's when I founded Zelkam and decided I'm going to put my reputation behind this, and I'm going to go for it. Never been an entrepreneur, never saw myself that way. But I mean, sometimes life just says there's no more doors. That's the only door you can go through. I didn't really have a grand choice of 4 or 5 wonderful job offers out there during the middle of COVID.
This
So
is your
really
shingle.
there was only one door to go through. So that's the one I went through. Became an entrepreneur, started this business. And another thing I had going for me is I've always loved new stuff, and I've always loved learning new things. I mean, I'm a bit of an old dude, as you can tell, but I love change. So learning all this new stuff, being a solopreneur, has been fascinating, and I've really enjoyed that part of it, as well. And then, of course, the real joy comes when you can help a customer save tons of money and literally tons of CO2.
Yeah. So, Brian, I imagine there's two sort of lines of thought here, and I want to go down the sort of pragmatist line of thought around the business model that you've got.
Okay.
And then I also want to also bring up the environmental sustainability aspects and where you feel like, that justice needs to be served too. Let's start with the former. So you said it yourself, fuel efficiency, 5 to 7% on average using these devices. And I imagine from a total addressable market standpoint, you've got the billions of dollars that's been spent on running all this diesel fueled machinery that you're principally aware of due to your several decades of experience. And so that from a bottom line standpoint, 5 to 7%, which may not sound like much if we're talking just $100, right? It's a ton when you look at it from a $1 billion sort of market standpoint. So now the question for you becomes, I guess, as a business model, how do you approach, what's the cost of approaching these relationships who are essentially speculative buyers of this?
Yeah.
What's their opportunity cost in order to adopt and purchase this technology, implement it, and how does that find everybody, right?
Well, I'll throw out one example here that I just kind of pulled up here. It's on another screen here. If you're a trucking company with 1,000 trucks, and there's a number of trucking companies here in the U.S. and of course across the world, there's a whole lot more that have 1,000 trucks. And here in the U.S., we drive about 120,000 miles a year on an average truck. So anyway, you kind of do that math, and for 1,000 trucks, you're going to get about $2.8 million in savings, dollar savings every year, as well as about 8,000 tons of CO2 reduced out of your fleet. And so that's pretty significant. I mean,
yeah, that
the money,
280 that's the 5 to 7% that you stand to gain due to the total cost of that being, what is it, 280 times 20, right? Assuming 5% conservative.
For the cost of the unit, mean?
Yeah, for the cost of running that shop, right?
Well, the total investment.
For the fleet.
Yeah, well, the total investment is going to pay off in our today's world with today's prices, whatever, just a little over 12 months. So 93% return on your investment. And if you go talk to your CFO, they probably don't have a lot of 93% projects sitting on their desk waiting to be signed. So it's a great investment, and your sustainability champions are going to be happy too because they finally have something to talk about. One of my favorite people to talk to really is the poor beleaguered sustainability or decarbonization champion who's given these lofty goals and not given much money to meet them.
Yeah, I need something practical. Nothing exists. I'm destined to fail.
Yeah. Instead of trying to just make something work here or fudge some numbers or whatever, if you're a decarbonization or a sustainability champion, I really would like to talk with you.
Yeah.
And by the way, I'll throw this in real quick. If you want to talk to me, go over to decarbonize5.com. So decarbonize5, the 5% there. So decarbonize5.com. And I've got some calculators for everybody too. If they just want to go look at those calculators, they can play with some sliders and put in their own fuel use, things like that. And it's going to give you how much money you can save, but then it'll also calculate tons of CO2 reduced for you.
Yeah.
So that should be useful. So anyway, decarbonize5.com, go over there and mess around with it. And if some of that looks good, then get hold of me, would you? Let's talk.
Case in point, Brian, you've got this win-win offering on the table. Your sales pitch is really clear. What challenges have you been experiencing with marketing yourself and marketing Zelkam?
Yeah, as I talk about this, and everybody I talk about with is like, wait a minute, this is like a win-win-win thing. And I'm like, yes, it is. However, boy, this is met with a lot of skepticism in the marketplace. And of course, we know why, right? I mean, I'm not the first clown to come around and say, hey, I've got this wonderful little black box magic thing that'll save you fuel. There's been a lot of that in the past, and a lot of it's been just, smoke and mirrors and whatever. And so you kind of have to get past that first. And that's one reason why I gave a little demonstration here with long molecules and short molecules, because I want everybody to understand this is not black box magic. This is standard chemistry that's done in refineries all over the world every day. It's just cracking some of those longer chain molecules.
The secret isn't how it works. It's the way you've put it all together and made it this cost. That's the real thing that you have.
The chemistry and physics is not new. The idea of taking this thing and then putting it under the hood of your truck, I mean, that's kind of novel. That's kind of new. But the chemistry and physics, there's nothing fancy about that. It's well known.
Well, we can argue in classic business sense that, to the nature of replicability, this is not something that these speculative buyers would speculate producing and researching and developing for themselves. It's already there. You've already got it. Why have them waste all their time and energy reinventing this particular wheel when they can just have it right now?
And it's covered by a bunch of patents, of course, too.
Of course.
And over the years, you refine it. It's the mix of rare earth metals and stuff to kind of keep tweaking it, getting a little better and better response all the time over the years.
Yeah. So case in point, the two main issues from a speculative buyer's perspective, as far as you understand it, is initial skepticism that you have to overcome, and then just ROI, right? Just have to get your return on investment, which is the CFO's problem at some point. Once all decision makers are bought in, it just becomes a question of, okay, where's my financial arithmetic this year? And can we afford to pinch in this in the budget? Okay, fair enough. Maybe you have to time your sales cycle accordingly, but I think that's not the main core problem. The main core problem is get past initial skepticism. And I guess also just, within skepticism, step one is awareness, right? People need to even know you and this product exists, let alone, be willing to move past any skepticism of it.
When people ask me, what's your biggest competition? There really isn't much on the market that's like this, really almost nothing. But my biggest competition is what you just said, lack of awareness. Nobody knows this exists. You drive by a semi truck, for example, on the road, and a lot of them have wheel covers now for aerodynamics. They have the side skirts running on the trailer. Some of them have these things on the back for aerodynamics. So they're trying all these things, which congratulations, by the way. It's a great idea. Let's all keep working on whatever. But the idea of making the fuel more efficient kind of doesn't, nobody thinks about that one. Can we drive less miles? Can we optimize how many miles we drive? On mining trucks, can we optimize tire pressure and driver behavior and all this kind of stuff? So everybody's trying for efficiency because everybody has cost reduction on their goals for the year, always. But what I'm trying to get out there is say, hey, there's another lever you haven't touched yet. You can pull this lever to get 5 to 7% better fuel economy. And you probably don't know that because this project or this product is just so not well known.
Brian, in spirit, you have an awareness problem. And not to play tongue in cheek with my company, which frankly isn't particularly supportive of marketing and messaging strategy as it relates to helping startups like yours, find their place in the marketplace. Although we have talked about marketing strategy because the reason we're here principally is because I care a lot about environmental sustainability. And I also understand business unit economics. And like you mentioned, everybody who hears about this says this ought to be a win-win-win. And my sort of desire for getting us on this podcast today was to see if I could help spread the message and try to combat that awareness problem. Because that is something I do feel like my company is responsible for to some degree. Like part of the reason we call ourselves Well Aware is in the spirit of environmental sustainability, we want more people to be aware and to understand what's possible, what's out there. So with that, I have two main questions for you. How can we help? And what's in it for us?
Okay, how can we help? Anybody that's listening to this, if you're a diesel drinker, if you own a trucking company, if you've got a mining
that's your
company,
direct ideal customer persona. Get me this guy, right? If
anybody that's a big diesel drinker, I can help a lot.
Okay.
Yes.
And these are your trucking fleets. These are your heavy machinery rental equipment companies. I met a guy I got to introduce you to, by the way, who I think might want to have a chat with you. Anybody but now, okay, where do these people exist, right? Because now also recently I met this, you'll love this, and I want to introduce you to her as well. She is a speaker. She's talking about sleep. She's specifically about to attend a seminar, a conference for the snowplow and snow removal industry. She's talking to these parties about sleep because in the past, there's this really famous, or infamous, I should say, incident back in 2014 when famous celebrity Tracy Morgan was hit by a Walmart truck. And it was determined to be due to the fact that particular Walmart truck driver had not been sleeping for 28 hours or something like that, some ridiculous amount. And as a result of that, they were lethargic.
Sad story.
And Tracy, fortunately came out of it. He did settle for several millions of dollars. And I think it was a big lesson for Walmart and perhaps the trucking industry at large to say, hey, you can't have your truck drivers falling asleep on the wheel. You have to consider the human logistics of getting enough sleep in order to prevent these types of incidents from happening. Otherwise, you're, creating perhaps unnecessary risk. But risk. And so, okay, why did I bring all that up? Because you have this woman who is finding it becoming a job of hers to go out to these particular communities of businesses that are operating in the same industry that you're targeting, talking to them about something tangential. And yet at the same time, perhaps she can get your foot in the door to perhaps be a speaker or to at least get to know individuals at that conference. And so here's how Michelle can get you into that same space, right? And so I'm trying to think about these types of ways for you to enter the market through folks who seem to be finding themselves directly or indirectly interacting with the same individuals that you're looking for.
Perfect. Yeah.
Cool.
Perfect.
All right. So,
and also,
what else? Yeah.
I mean, to answer your second question, though, what's in it for anybody else?
Yeah.
I mean, I currently work with a number of people around the world that work just on a commission basis, with me. And if they help me get sales, they get paid commissions. And it's interesting that a lot of those are actually old friends from Caterpillar who've
Yeah.
retired or they went on to something else. And we had good working relationship when we were there. Even some customers, my old Caterpillar customers, have called and stuff. So it's you've always heard this. It's true. It's always about relationships. So the relationships I built over all the years, people know they can trust me. So they find out I'm doing something different. They call me, hey, what are you doing? Can I get involved? And so anyway, yeah, it's on a commission basis. And so anybody that helps me make a sale or makes a good introduction or something else, then there's I pay commissions on all that.
Yeah. And that, I think, not to sound transactional, but I tend to fight this philosophy a lot in my content dynamics towards partnership ops, right? But you've essentially described a very classic traditional referral partnership program. Hey,
Yep.
help me find my next book of business. I'll pay you for your troubles, right? You helped bridge a warm introduction. You've helped reduce the cost of having to fight skepticism against someone who's cold, because at the end of the day, this person who you've helped introduce me to, me being Brian in this case, has essentially said, hey, you know what? I don't know too much about this solution. I don't know if it's worth its salt, but I'm being referred to it by someone I know, like, and trust.
Yeah.
And therefore, okay, I'll hear it out, right? And that
Yep.
sort of makes your job, Brian, a whole lot easier, because now you're not just talking to a complete stranger. You're talking to a stranger who's had a little bit of social capital, reputed and staked by this other relationship of yours that's come to know you and said, yeah, you know what? I like Brian. I like what he's doing. And you know what? At the end of the day, if I can help him get introduced to his next book of business, then, I get a piece of it. And I like to always add that, like, for anyone who finds that to be way too transactional, or that loses the spirit, I invite you to have two additional options in your back pocket, whether you're working with Brian or any other partnership operator in the space. Your two options are decline the commission, and do so transparently and publicly, and somehow earn a different type of social capital there. I don't know what you may be going for there, but in the world of favors, a commission is saying thank you. Declining the commission means, hey, maybe I'll come back for something else that may be able to barter with in the future. Again, still transactional, but maybe a little bit less so if you're so inclined to just say, nope, I'm willing to do this and I don't want to take anything in return, even in the future. The second thing you can do, and I'm curious to see, Brian, how you might approach this, is, hey, maybe you don't want to take the commission, but what if I just take that commission and donate it to your charity of choice? Hey, we're already talking about sustainability. Who do you want to support, right?
I mean, I'd be happy to do that. I mean, right now, I already donate 10% of any profits from the company to charities.
All right. So I love that. I love the mission alignment with that. And I think, Brian, again, the unit economics that all of this comes down to in terms of our time, our deadlines, and trying to get this thing moving forward is how quickly can we potentially get you and your business in front of the right people, right? We know what's in it for us now. We know exactly who you're looking for. We have some potential creative ways in which we can explore, hey, who in our industry, who in our networks, despite not necessarily being in the heavy machinery, how can they somehow be tangential to that? Maybe they have rubbed shoulders or been a part of a conference, or maybe there's something there. Maybe they know someone who they went to college with. And so to sort of expand that referral capacity, I think is also just as important.
Yeah.
Given people can come up with that creativity, given they have some semblance. And this is the thing that I think is most pragmatic to the transactionalists out there. If you can say, well, look, I'm going to earn a commission, on introducing Brian to this fleet, but it's not just going to be me. I have to refer someone who has to refer someone to make the possible connection to Brian. Guys, share the loot, share the commission, right?
Yep.
Tell everyone where the downstream effects are, honor the chain of connections, let everyone win, because that is like that. I hate to say it, that greases the wheels. That is the spirit of saying, look, Brian has a marketing and sales operation cost here. He's going to have it no matter what he does, whether he takes advertising, whether he does a cold email marketing campaign, regardless of what approach he takes in the market, he's going to have a sales and marketing operation cost. You can be that sales and marketing operation cost. You and your referral relationships who get you to Brian's closed business can be that sales and marketing operations cost. What's great for Brian at the end of the day is he doesn't have to pay for you guys unless you guys are successful, right? Yeah. At the same time, y'all don't have to work really hard if you know the right fit and just have to make a little warm intro over email. So however that process gets streamlined for Brian's sake, talk to us, right? We'll get you there. We'll get that messaging going.
Yeah, absolutely. And if somebody wants to spend 5 minutes with me on the phone or something, just to kind of poke me at credibility and whatever before you put your name on the line for me, please do. Look me
Okay.
up. Go to that decarbonize5.com, snoop around a little bit, and let's talk for a few minutes because your reputation is precious and it's like gold. And you don't want to throw it away on somebody who's a bum. So feel free to check me out.
A bum with 4 decades of chemical engineering experience working at Caterpillar. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
Well,
totally
yeah, well,
untrustworthy.
yeah.
Never seen this man before in my life. Brian, I think that's a cool call to action to end on. Before we wrap things up, is there anything else you'd like to share about your work?
I want to encourage other people who happen to be in similar situations. We all try to make ourselves look like we're doing really well, but we're not all doing really well. And I'm happy to share my struggles with people. I've shared some of them here, in this time. And keep your chin up, be encouraged. And I guess I'll say, if you really need some encouragement and you can't get any from anywhere else, call me. I'll be happy to tell you it'll be all right. Because if you talk to a lot of people around the world, somebody gets fired, somebody has something go wrong, they almost always end up in a better place, right? I mean, you've heard that. And when you're the one going through the hard time, it's a little harder to believe, but you've been told it many times. It's true.
Brian, I'm reminded of when I first got started running my business, and the very thing that I was carrying through was I was in the spirit of feeling like I was the engineer, the founder, and the guy that had to pay the bills,
Mm-hmm.
and I couldn't make it all work. And I felt like a real, a failure because I thought that was my job to make that work. And it was only through reaching out to a ton of other folks in my entrepreneurial community and space and just asking them, hey, you got 24 hours, I've got 24 hours. How are you doing it? Like, what are you pulling off? Like, how do you make that work? And those conversations, to your point, both gave me a lot of the therapy that I think I needed at the time. And I think it also proved to be some therapy for the folks that I was speaking with as well. And
Mm-hmm.
thankfully, from that interaction and those subsequent interactions, I was then able to start to spin up the business that I have today. And so I really feel for that story, Brian. I think no matter where you come from, there's nothing wrong with asking for help. There's nothing wrong with asking for advice. If anything, you should especially do it when you're in a position where you need it. And then accordingly, see yourself through, see how that then carries you forward into the next thing that you're going to be able to do to success, or how it takes the current thing that you're doing and gets you to that point of success because it leads you to meeting the right people, getting the right knowledge, performing the right actions, and ultimately, sticking or pivoting to the right commitments, all in due time.
You can ask yourself, do you enjoy helping somebody else? Do you enjoy lending a helping hand? Do you enjoy giving people some advice in the road you've walked down and they're walking down? Yeah, most of you would have to say, yeah, well, then don't be afraid to ask somebody else for some help because they're going to enjoy helping you as well.
Yeah, I enjoy doing that and making that possible, all within a place of sustainability. Sometimes it's just purely financial affordability, but I think also in whether in the spirit of general culture, as well as perhaps depending on the case study, in the spirit of creating environmental safetiness and well-being. That to me is the ultimate sustainability that we all strive for. We may not look at it that way. We may not call it environmental sustainability to that regard, but Brian, I think it's for this reason again that I'm really happy we had a chance to chat today.
Yeah, me too. Me
Okay,
too.
folks, you heard where to find Brian. We'll leave you this additional information available to you at your convenience. Please don't be afraid to reach out to him. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me and/or Brian. Once again, thank you for being here. This is the Well Work Podcast. I'm Conrad Ruiz. Until next time. Thanks, Brian.
Thanks, Conrad. Enjoyed it. Appreciate it.